Hello, and welcome to the 23rd installment of our War and Peace Quarantine Edition read through. I am Matthew Robinson, and joining me, the sterile blossom himself, Dimitri Portnoy.
Hello, Legolas. Hello, everybody.
I had to put my stupid hair down. We're going to start where we began with my dumb hair. This is the penultimate, which is Russian for second to last episode, as we only have 62 pages left. A monumental task for a 24-hour period, but we're going to do our best. Dimitri, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. These are my favorite pages in the book.
Oh my
so
gosh. Far. Wow, so you're just liking it more the further we get in.
Yes, I had a tough time with the past 100 pages.
Yeah.
Because of the dry descriptions of the French retreat. And what I felt was some melodramatic moments with Andre in his deathbed and with Pierre and Platon in prison. This is probably the best description of love.
Whoa.
Rediscovering itself.
Yeah.
Feelings changing in an instant, people lost among their feelings, guessing each other's feelings, the necessity for mediation. I'm talking about Pierre's and Natasha's meeting happening when Pierre had almost forgotten about his feelings for Natasha and basically doesn't even recognize her when he comes to visit Maria.
So let me do a quick overview of what we read, and then you can get specific for me.
Sure.
So Kutuzov dies in a very not funny, but kind of funny. Basically, Tolstoy describes it as there was nothing left for him to do but die, and so he died. He had accomplished everything.
Very offhand, kind of like a monster.
Yeah. It was like, well, there was nothing left for him to do but die, so that's what he did. He's dead. Kutuzov died. After, Tolstoy gave him 50 pages of praise. Then Pierre, 3 months since being freed from the camps, visits Maria in Moscow, and he finds Maria being accompanied by a woman he does not recognize, who he then goes on to realize is Natasha, changed beyond recognition to him. Transfigured. And they have a lovely conversation. She unloads for the first time all of her experiences with Andre and her feelings about his death and his final days. And it's the first time she's talking about him since his death. And she says it all to Pierre, who she feels comfortable with. And we get an interesting thing where Natasha describes him as clean and smooth and round, which is exactly how Pierre described Karatev. So he has now become his own. The student has become the master. And so tell us about Natasha and Pierre's love, as you were doing before.
Well, it's hard to summarize because, again, Tolstoy's sentences are so crystalline in and of themselves. Yeah, they see each other, they rediscover their passion for each other, they promise to marry. It is inevitable. What's interesting about these pages is that I was on the edge of my seat because sentence by sentence, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. It really does feel like what falling in love feels in real life. In retrospect, it may be inevitable, but when you're in the moment, you have no idea.
Right.
You have no idea what your own feelings are. You have no idea how the other person feels about you. And that is described absolutely beautifully and to me, absolutely accurately. These are amazing pages. And the book, right before the epilogue, but book 4 ends with a tremendous irony because, of course, it ends with Natasha saying, "Oh, Pierre has gone to Petrograd."
Right.
That's fine. He's gone to Petrograd, but of course it was Andrei's leaving Natasha in exactly the same circumstance that prompted her engagement to fall apart, and her falling in love with Anatoly. So the ending of the book comes at the moment of its highest, for me, emotional peak, but also an irony that, oh my God, the same thing is happening all over again. Is Pierre making the same mistake that Andre made? Is Natasha making the
Right.
mistake of thinking that nothing is going to happen? And after that, at the beginning of the prologue, Tolstoy launches into several pages of historical
Yeah.
philosophy and another assessment of Napoleon's
Yeah.
character and an assessment
An
of
assassination of
the
Napoleon's character.
sovereigns. Yes, and the sovereign's character, which are absolutely amazing and beautiful and incredibly interesting. But I'm sitting
Yeah.
there ripping my hair out. What about Natasha and Pierre? What about Natasha and
Yeah,
Pierre?
he did a good
So
job.
I think it's
He
brilliant.
definitely knows how to end a book on a cliffhanger. I actually would like to know the publishing order of these. If the epilogue was actually published alongside book four, if they were published separately, I wonder. I'd have to look
They're
into that.
certainly included in the same tome
Yeah.
because the book four and epilogue are the same length
Yeah.
as book one, two, and
Sure.
three. Kind of like the Return of the King with all the
Yeah.
appendices
Yeah. Yeah.
it is the same as the Two Towers. I was afraid that the epilogue would be kind of Tolstoy's Scouring of the Shire,
Mm-hmm.
but actually, uh, the further adventures of Nikolai and Maria are just as riveting
Yeah.
because Nikolai turns into a serf owner,
Mm-hmm.
a slave driver, a farmer, a Republican,
Yep.
someone concerned with business and productivity and the
And beating
land
his slaves.
and beating his slaves, but with his fists.
Yeah.
He gets into fights with
Yeah.
them. He's like
Yeah. He's
rambunctious.
a hothead.
It's like, okay, come after me. He's a pugilist. Um, I still don't know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah.
It seems to be a loveless marriage.
Yeah, that's what I
but
was
there
going to say.
does
How
also
do you
seem
feel about Nikolai and Maria's? Because we get, so in our epilogue, we get a very dry 15 pages or so about genius and chance and
but
Alexander's late.
interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
I think, in my
No,
opinion.
I enjoy them as well. We are told the year is 1820. Russia's victorious. Alexander reunited Poland. Alexander got a little weird. People weren't so sure about Alexander. And then we're told that Natasha and Pierre were married in 1813. We're told that Count Rostov died shortly after that, and Nikolai was shouldered with his father's debts, which he was able to pay off, and then began to prosper. And his goal is still to buy his father's land back, but he had to sell it at a loss. Nikolai marries Maria and moves to Bald Hills with Sonia, who is insultingly referred to as a sterile blossom, which is
A strawberry blossom.
what I'm going to call Dmitri for the rest of my life. And
You do that, dear heart.
and yeah, so I don't feel though that they love each. I don't. Okay, I'll say this: Maria loves Nikolai. I don't believe Nikolai loves Maria outside of. I think he respects the hell out of her, and I think he thinks she's an incredible person. But I think he also thinks Sonia's an incredible person. But he loves Sonia. Would be my feelings.
Well, I'll have to finish the book to make up.
Yeah,
to
no,
make
I'm just
up my
talking about
own
right
mind.
now. I'm talking
Although
about
the
right
question-
now.
Right now, I think Nikolai loves himself. And I think this part of the book is an interesting examination of marriage based on romantic love, Pierre's and Natasha's, and marriage based on mutual interests and mutual benefit. And a somewhat arranged marriage between Nikolai and Maria.
It was definitely a marriage of necessity.
Maria's aunt and... Yeah, so there are two views of marriage. that one seems to be older than the other.
Yeah.
We think that our romantic marriage is newer, but both types of marriages persist.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but in various moments when you feel like judging, Matt, I'm sure you know married couples who are closer to Nikolai and Maria
Oh
than they
yeah,
are
sure.
to Pierre and
Yeah,
Natasha.
absolutely. No, I mean they're both understandable, and Tolstoy does a good job of writing about them without the feel of any tint of judgment at all. I feel like, which leaves it open to you to have your own feelings about their relationship. But I don't feel like he pushes you one way or the other in describing either of their relationship so far.
In the same way that he talks about Napoleon and the sovereign.
Yeah,
Ultimately, in one of my favorite sentences in the book, saying that they're both just ordinary people,
yeah,
and should be judged as ordinary people.
yeah.
And these are ordinary marriages and should be judged as ordinary marriages. Ultimately, up to you. It's ultimately up to the reader. I think Tolstoy, maybe on different days, I would feel differently about Nikolai and his ultimate fate.
Yeah.
I, I think in part one of the things I regret is how he disappears from so much of the book.
Hmm.
And I think Tolstoy kind of gives him short shrift.
Nikolai, or
He could have used,
you're talking about Nikolai?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, he could have used a lot of, the description of the battles in the previous 200 pages to show them through Nikolai's eyes, make them live a little more.
Yeah.
I think the book suffers a little bit from having less Nikolai in it. If I can criticize War and Peace, God forgive me. Uh, but Nikolai's fate to me is, on some days, a fate worse than death,
Yeah.
to be a Republican in the loveless marriage. But of course, how could any Republican be in anything but? uh, but on other days, he's productive, he has children,
Yeah.
he does have a bond with his wife, even though it's more spiritual, biological, productive bond, a genitive bond rather than a bond of
Yeah.
passion. So
I think
I'm being very judgmental
no.
right
I think
now.
the question that Tolstoy is leaving for us at this moment, with the book unfinished, is Pierre and Natasha have clearly gone through a massive transformation. Maria has clearly gone through a massive transformation. What has Nikolai gone through? I think is the question. And who will Nikolai be? I think he is the only unfinished character we have left in terms of his arc or in terms of a major transformation. So to me, if I had never read the
I
book
look
before,
forward to him being finished off.
yeah, sure. Heyo. Yeah, so that's it. Tomorrow we're going to finish the book. We'll discuss our final feelings on the final 62 pages. And then we will come back a little bit later, sometime in the next week, and discuss the book as a whole. But tomorrow, I think we'll have plenty to talk about just in the last 62 pages without giving our final overall thoughts of the whole book. And I think we should, as I said yesterday, let ourselves sit for a week or so and let the book do what it does once it's finished, and then share those thoughts. Sound good to you?
I promise not to jump the gun.
Yes. Okay.
Death is but an awakening.
Yes, death is an awakening, and you are my sterile blossom, dear heart.
And you are my Legolas.
We did it, everybody. Tomorrow we will be done. 24 days straight of reading War and Peace. 24 days is about as fast as you should read War and Peace, I think. Any faster, and it will just feel like work. So this is an achievement. They say this is the kind of book you read in prison or when you get cancer. We have found out it is also the type.
This is close enough.
It is also the type of book you read during a pandemic. And tomorrow we will finish off
I do have to say one thing.
Yeah.
I do have to say one thing. It is shorter than the movie feels.
Well, yeah. So,
The Russian War and Peace, only 8 hours.
well, this will have taken me
War and Peace.
36 hours to read by the time we get there tomorrow. About between 36 and 40 hours. So, yeah, that's all.
It feels shorter than the movie.
Yeah, I'll say that too. All right, Dimitri, have a wonderful day. We'll talk tomorrow.
Can't
Bye-bye.
wait.